and it will try to mask some of the tokens, maybe 10% tokens, and then again it will try to predict the tokens, 10% tokens, and over the period of life, by say, it will try to learn these models. And that's the reason actually whenever like auto typing, like for example, whenever you are typing in maybe in WhatsApp or maybe in Google, you are trying to reply, these models are working. So these are like the broadly categories of different LLM types. And now this GPT is actually quite popular. Like it's only the decoder based models, or we call like autoregressive language models. So this autoregressive model that will be which is called like a feed forward model. That means this predict the future word from a set of words in a given sentence context. That means if you provide a sequence, then it has the capability to produce the next set of tokens. And quite good, you might have observed that. Okay. And I think nowadays everybody is using this chat GPT, which is nothing but a fine-tuned version of GPT 3.5. Like once you ask some prompts, it can able to generate the answers. So this is, I think, I hope I have gone through a little bit about the language model and large language models. Next, we'll talk about the Indic languages, like why we are like interested or how they are applicable to Indic languages. But before that, actually, we need to know a little bit about Indic languages. So actually, when we talk about Indic languages, so we know like you might have known like in India we have a lot of languages. So mostly like we classify them into four different language families. Like we have around 22 scheduled languages, and the four language families which have shown here like Dravidian or Indo-European or Sino-Tibetan. So based on the different regions we are speaking, and our languages like most 8 languages in the world, so top 20 languages. That means like for example, you consider Bengali or other languages, they have like quite number of speakers, and that is considered like world's most spoken languages also, like in the category means in top 20 categories. So one of the reason like they have like Bengali, or those Bengali is not only spoken in India, also like whole Bangladesh is speaking Bengali. So similarly, like if you look into other languages, because they are not only spoken inside India, outside also like people are staying or in abroad also many languages are spoken. So they have actually I have a lot of languages. Even 30 languages, they have more than 1 million speakers. Uh, and why I'm explaining this, so just to want to know that like how diversified actually our languages are. Like even if you consider the scripts, like we have like 14 major scripts, and if you look into these scripts, actually even scripts are also quite different. That means if we consider like our languages, they are quite diversified itself. For example, if you look into Indo-European languages or Dravidian languages itself, it varies. Like for example, languages spoken in the South India or in the North India, actually they are also vary. Also, like from the eastern side, so they are also quite different. So they have actually a lot of diversification. And when we are talking about these technologies like generative AI, so how good are these for these languages or for Indic languages? Like, will it work? For example, because we know that all these models like GPT or other like LLMs, actually they are like mostly based on English. So, and actually in our case, like in India, actually we are talking about mostly about other languages. Even we have a, if you can see from this particular graph, you can see like the internet users from English as compared to Indian languages. So you can see that, okay, this will be some statistics from 2021. You can see that the number of users for non-English languages are also quite quite big, and they are go on increasing. Now the question is, or the main challenge is like that. Okay, how to service them, or is these technologies are will be available for these languages? Otherwise, actually, people cannot get their benefit. So that is one of the research areas. And now as you said, these Indic LLMs, actually now it's not like that. Okay, these are not. We have not done anything in India. Also, many like organizations or many companies actually they are trying to solve this issue. So you might have seen some of the companies like Bharat GPT or Sarvam.ai. So they have releasing like different LLM based model like for different languages, Hindi, Odia, Kannada. So you might have even recently we have started some of our research work, and we also released many LLMs for Odia and other Indic languages, and they are also performing quite good. Even in some instances, they are quite performing better than this OpenAI or ChatGPT model. Maybe I can show some example like about our work. So what I am trying to say, like most of these players or in Indic LLMs, they are consider these challenges and they are trying working on this to solve this issue or to reach this technology to the citizens of India. The major challenges in Indic languages is like, as I say, uh, most of the people like they speak different languages, and not only languages. Actually, we have also the different dialects, and we have written scripts are different. So it's a lot of challenges. So first challenge is the data, like collecting the data or the high quality data. So that will be first challenge. Second challenge is like the tokenization, because mostly English, like the Latin scripts, and how our scripts actually that will be different. So that means the way these models work or based on the tokenizer or they calculate the context length, that one will be different to Indic languages because of our complexity of this written script. You might have known, like for example, like the if you try to count the tokens for the English language or in Indian language, it never match. So because our scripts are different, and we have used a lot of compound sort, and we have a lot of diacritic swarms. So they have a lot of challenges in tokenizer. Even the dialect, as I said, for example, like even if you inside India, actually we speak a lot of dialects. For example, in Odisha also, like if you go to like different regions, their dialects will be completely different. Maybe in Barampur they have a different, they use different dialects. Sambalpur have different dialects, or maybe Koraput or some. Or maybe if you go to Talche. So it will be like that is also another challenge of dialect. And we have diverse language families. And another main challenge is the localization. So even if these models, which are trained in English, how they can understand like our localization, like in say, our context, like for example, different our culture or our festival or our personalities or our region. So that also another challenge to solving these language models. So maybe some of the
Can I?
example I can give.
Hello. Can I
Yeah.
just post a question? I'm Manas. I'm just small doubt before you proceed. Can I ask a question?
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, you can ask.
just a minute, just a small question. So I was just wondering, when the dialects are different, and the written versions of those are not available, how do you train the model? Just you
Uh,
mentioned about dialects in Berhampur or Sambalpur can be different, but we may
yeah.
not have the written text. So in that case, how do you train the model? Thank you.
Yeah. I can come to that. Actually, now the models actually we have not considered the dialects. For example, now when we are building the models, actually mostly actually we are consider the standard. For example, the standard Odia, because supporting dialect, I think it will be next research area where we need to focus particularly the LLMs. So first thing actually we tried in this area is identify the dialect. For example, in Google now, if you type whether you input some of the text for Odia text, it can only tell that this text is belongs to Odia, but it cannot tell that okay this text is belongs to Sambalpuri Odia or Barampuri Odia or Kotaki Odia. So for that, actually first thing is that you need to identify the dialect, and for that actually we are trying to build a data set like scrapping the data from different regions, and so that first it can understand the dialect, then we can input it. But in the current scope of the work, like what we are doing the research or develop the models, actually it supports the standard Odia. So as I said that
Thank you,
that
thank
is
you,
also.
thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can
So if
understand
you,
the complexity.
yeah, yeah, thank you. So yeah, so as I said, like for example, why we are more mainly focusing on building those Indic languages. So when we started, maybe I think a few months back when we started, so I was just playing around like in Chat GPT. So I asked some questions. You might have seen, maybe those cannot read ODI. I can okay tell that okay I have asked some question like tell me something about what will be the famous food of Barampur, or like can you explain me the preparation of Odia sweet dish rasgulla. So even you can also try like in chat gpt, you won't get a very means you will not get a accurate answer, or you will not get actually satisfying answer till now. It is not only for Odia, even for many languages in India languages. Other than maybe you can get some response in Hindi good because they have a lot of availability, but other languages you won't get. The reason is like that these language models actually they didn't train with large amount of Indic language data, and even if they will train, it will be very difficult for them to understand this kind of a local context, and that actually we are trying to solve. So I said that as I said, it will be like a lot of high demand for LLMs for languages, Indic languages other than English. And the major problem like the data or the for these low resource languages, like the instruction set, how to get the instruction set, and also we need to support this like the Indic languages, so that actually this kind of technology, generative AI or LLM based technology, that can be reached to the citizens or the real people, so that they can able to use it. So that will be like some motivations, and we tried in this direction. And this will be the typical pipeline. Like we try first with the fine-tuned models, and we are working on now in the pre-trained model also. So in the fine-tuned model, this is the challenge. Like first you need to prepare some data, then you have to build a model, then you have some inference. So how we try to solve those things? So first we try to solve like okay, let's try to build some tools so that we can collect data. So collect data means scrapping the data. So as you said that okay, even Sarah asked before that, okay, how can you solve this? So one of the reason, as I said, first we try to scrap the data. So scrap the data means there are different sources of data. So we build some tools like okay, where you can you have okay, we don't have a lot of data, but we have like a PDFs or books. So those are available. So even if we can use we are using OCR based technology like OCR, like to read the data and validate it. Yeah, so there are a lot of process. So we build like a scrapper. It's available all are like free open source. So where you can just provide any URLs or document or anything, then it can scrap you the data. So in that way, actually we collect lot of data. Then okay, data is fine, but how to build some instruction set? That is also second challenge, because okay, data you can collect the data, but these are like monolingual data, but we need in a different format like instruction set format. So most of the data, like we use different techniques. So first okay, we try to popular instruction sets in English. We try to translate some, but if you translate those instruction set, it cannot understand the local context. Like for example, this popular instruction set, they never tell you about what will be the food of Barampur, or a location. If you ask in Barampur or Sambalpur, it cannot know. It doesn't know. Or if you ask some famous personality in Odia or different geographical region, they don't have their information. So what we try to do, we try to build our own domain knowledge instruction set, like where we have collected all these data, and then we try to build some instruction set relating to like different all the related topics about Odia. Like for example, it will be whether it will be politics, or it will be history, the literature, recipe. So all types of questions. So we try to build some instruction set, and for some instruction set preparation, actually we build a using a olive farm. Like for example, even we try to use those chat GPT, where you just provide a instruction set or a text, then ask it to okay, can you frame me 10 questions or 15 questions, then it can frame you some questions and you can get the answers. But one of the reason it is not working quite well for Odia, because the ChatGPT also doesn't understand Odia well. But yeah, for Hindi, this approach seems working. But for Odia, like we mostly actually we tried, then we try to frame our instruction set, and in this way actually we collected, I think, around 10,000 first domain knowledge instruction set, and also we translated. And first like data set we build, like instruction set, I think it will be around 1.8K, around 2 lakh instruction set is will be available, which we try to train for different models. So for fine tuning, actually the concept is like you take a foundation model, and top of that you do a supervised fine tuning using this instruction set. So for Indic languages, actually we try different approaches like Llama 27B or Mistral models, using fine tuning, using LoRa or different quantization. Due to shortage of time, I cannot go in details, but yeah, for different models, again we try to put different hyperparameter and fine tune these models. And then next question is that comes like, with this model works. So yeah, these models are working. Even we have already released those models, so even I can play it, like it can understand both. If you type in Odia also, it can give you answer. If you type in English also, it can provide the answer. Maybe some of the models you can see it, like we tried, like for example we tried asking a different questions, like relating to Odia, for example, where we ask some of the math question, like what will be the division of, if you type 16 by 4, what will be the answer? Or can you give an example of a palindrome? Or yeah, many type of questions we tried. So we found that okay, these models are able to understand at least the domain context, and able to able to answer in Odia. So uh, so yeah, those are actually already available in Hugging Face. Then we uploaded all the models, these open source models, and anybody can taste it. And you can also, if you want, you can like to improve those models. And yeah, so actually this has the basic understanding, like whether it is, if you try to ask a poetry, or you want to ask some of the general question, like okay, for example, here we are asking, okay, can you explain me what is generative AI? It can it understand, and it can able to answer it. Then actually we did a comparison study, like how good and our models in to open source AI. So we found that okay, most of the instances, even our models is able to understand the context and able to answer it properly. And same thing also, actually after Odia, we tried for even for Hindi and Bengali, and for other languages. Now we are working on that, and mostly actually the results are quite promising, because these models are able to understand and able to answer. And the main thing is like that, okay, this doesn't need any OpenAI key or anything, and these are like open source models, so anybody can use it. So yeah, so as you can say that okay, it has actually some ability to understand the language. So yeah, I'll not go, but yeah, you can try it if somebody is interested more on this. Even for Hindi, I can also show some examples, like how these models are working. So for example, if you ask like different questions, like it will be, for example, we are asking like what will be the capital of Mexico, or can you write me a poems, or if you can write me a code. So it can able to understand. Even the Hindi, actually Hindi model is based on the Mistral 7B model. Actually, we fine tuned it. So yeah. So this one, actually these models are there in our, provide all the links. Even all the instruction sets are also there. Even anybody is interested, they can go and try it. So even similarly for Bengali, like we tried like with a different, like we asked like okay, some questions like what are the benefit of eating an apple a day. it says like, okay, I cannot read Bengali, but yeah, it says that, okay, benefiting of eating an apple a day. Apples are healthy and wholesome food to eat. Even it can able to write simple programs. So we ask like evaluate it with a lot of. We prepared some data set for evaluating, and yeah, it performs quite well. So I think I didn't cross the time. Yeah, so maybe I will conclude it. So as I said that, okay, this Indic LLM space is growing with this vernacular LLM. So now people are also appreciating like our work, and they are also trying in different languages in South India languages and other languages. So many researchers are working on this. So these models, I think, in coming days, those are will be available for research. And what some of the like potential research areas for this Indic LLMs, as I said, that we need to have a clean data which can also understand this domain knowledge for both pre-training and fine-tuning. Also, this Indic LLM evaluation benchmark, even we are trying to build a benchmark. And also, we are trying to building different apps, or that is also quite a good area for building these apps for education, healthcare, agriculture. And recently, we developed also a app. It's a AI-based tutor where already it is developed. Will release soon, like where you can ask questions and it can able to answer it. So those are like based on open source. So those are free for anybody to use it. And yeah, so these are the resources, as I mentioned. We'll provide all the resources, so you can find this ODI model here in Hugging Face or Bengali or Hindi, or all the data sets are also there in the websites. And these are the tools for data extraction and instruction farming, instruction set preparation. And these are like the Hugging Face and Git repo. You can download it and play around it. Yeah, I think I've come to an end. So thanks. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. And we.
Thank you very much, sir, for a very nice talk. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay,
Sir, just for the crowd management, we have made this session as a YouTube direct link, live streaming, as well as also to the auditorium. So some of the questions which I have just collected from the students is an undergraduate students, especially in computer science, to move into this area. What are the prerequisite skills which they must be good at? I mean, probability, statistics, a lot of things comes into picture. So,
as I said, actually, this technology actually doesn't need any very high skill. Actually, basic understanding of computer science and math, like probability. As I said, these are mostly probability distribution. That is sufficient. Like the even in the +2 levels, like the probability statistics, what we learn, I think that is enough to understand these models. And some basic programming in Python, it will be definitely do. Even actually, most of the tools what I have shown, actually, those are developed by the interns. They are working with us. So just like these undergraduate students, actually, they have. We are inviting interns to work with us, because these are like open source community. So I don't code everything. So mostly all these tools actually developed by the interns. So even anybody is interested, they can even come and they can work with us. No problem. We are free. Even we are, because the interns we are taking from different institutions in Odisha. So yeah, feel free to contact me if anybody is interested.
Definitely, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, yeah, thank you for inviting me and providing some opportunity to showcase our research. So, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Good morning, good morning, respected Samuel Tensingh, sir. Good morning, sir. Am I audible, sir?
I can hear you, sir. Good morning.
Yes, sir. First of all, I'm sorry for delay. I mean, you had to wait around 5 to 10 minutes. So thank you very much, sir. So now I request Professor Manisha Patro to give a brief introduction regarding you as to our audience. So just to say, like our students and all are in the auditorium and it's a live session, just to crowd management, just not to make this room crowdy or to avoid the disturbance. And YouTube live streaming also we have kept for the other students who are offline. And I will collect the questions from them and then I'll put it at the end.
Sure. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. And now I request Professor Manisha Patra to give an introduction. Over to Manisha Patra.
Good morning, sir. Okay. So before proceeding with our talk, first I would like to welcome our good morning, sir. And I'm Manisha Patra, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science and Engineering. First of all, I would like to welcome our Chairman, Honorable Chairman, sir, Dr. Sukant Kumar Mahapatra, sir, Principal, Dr. P. Rajesh Kumar, sir, Vice Principal, Vishnugar Naik, sir, Dr. Vishnugar Naik, sir, Professor, CS, Computer Science and Engineering, Dr. Manesh Ranjan Patra, sir, then CSE HOD, Dr. Brajakashar Mishra, sir, Head of Research and Innovation, Dr. Sandeepan Malik. So now I am here to introduce our second keynote speaker. So here I am delighted to introduce our esteemed keynote speaker, Mr. Samuel Tensingh, who holds the position of Associate Lecturer at the School of Biomedical Engineering at the University of Sydney in Australia. He has 14 years of experience designing digital integrated circuit for Avago Technologies, Broadcom Limited, and ST Microelectronics in Singapore, where he worked as a senior physical design engineer. He has multiple certifications from Cadence Design System. His experience is mainly in RTL GDS implementation, delivering numerous ASIC design in his career. Professor Samuel holds an MBA from Anglia Ruskin University, UK, and MS in Integrated Circuit Design, jointly offered by Nanyang Technology University, Singapore, and Technical University of München, Germany, and a Bachelor's of Engineering in Electronics and Communication from Anna University, India. He is a senior member of IEEE and an active member of 4G Technical Society across the globe. He has reviewed papers and chair sessions for more than 10 IEEE conferences and holds 8 patents for IoT projects. He has received a Technical Merit Award for the paper A Novel Approach in Security Implementation and Clock Tree Synthesis using ICC2 in Penang 2018. He is passionate about sharing his experience with students and professionals and has delivered guest lectures in more than 150 international platforms on VLSI design, IoT, and cybersecurity. Professor Samuel is also a professional musician and has multiple certification in piano, music theory, Western singing, and violin from the Associate Board of Royal School of Music and the Trinity College of London. We are privileged to have him here to share his wealth of knowledge and experience with us. Now I request Professor Samuel to address the audience. Sir, please.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the brief introduction. And once again, very happy to be part of this international conference where I could share my knowledge and expertise to all the participants of the conference and also the organizing committee and your institution. So once again, thanks to all the management, key persons for giving me this opportunity. And I hope that this session 45 minutes will be quite useful to all the participants and especially students of the computer science engineering. So I'll be sharing my presentation now.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
Okay, so my presentation for today is an insight into challenges in the IoT ecosystem. So we are well aware that moving forward, we are in a digital world where things are getting digitalized. We are getting transformed to a digital world, and digital technologies are involved in all aspects of our life. It may be for kids and for even for senior people. Digital technologies, we are surrounded by digital technologies, and it has made our life easier and efficient. So we have seen this over the past 2-3 years since COVID, that we are more addicted to digital gadgets, electronic devices, consumer electronics. So you can see the consumer electronics market also coming up with the new technologies like big data, IoT, smart homes are coming up, smart technologies, smart wearable devices. So you can see the trend moving forward, and you can see the courses in the engineering curriculum also getting updated based on the latest technologies in IoT, AI, machine learning. So this is the trend moving forward. And today I wanted to explore more on the IoT ecosystem, where we will talk more mainly on the security challenges, the challenges where we have in the IoT ecosystem. So as of 2017, 27 billion devices were connected to the internet. But this is expected to increase to 125 billion by 2030. So you can see the trend moving forward and the exponential growth which is expected by 2030. So we are already able to witness this right now with lots of different new consumer electronics coming up in the market. AI is also playing a very major role with effective implementation of business applications, and you can see AI application almost in all the sectors in the industries, right? So this is the advancements we have in digital technologies. And talking about IoT, so as the term IoT is Internet of Things. So you may have a question that we have been using internet for a very long time. Since 20 years ago, 15 years ago, we have been using internet. So we had dial-up connections and then broadband connections. Now it is fiber optics. So why is the term IoT very popular only a few years ago? So the reason is previously we had only our desktops, computers connected to the internet. But right now you can see that you're able to connect any physical device to the internet, right? It can be your smartphone, your home automation, everything is getting connected to the internet. So that is why we have the term IoT. So when we look at the history of IoT, it is quite fascinating that in 1982, few students at Carnegie Mellon University in US, they were working on a PhD project. So they were working on something completely different, but they were quite thirsty and they wanted to know if the Coke vending machine in the university had enough number of Cokes, because the Coke vending machine was quite far away from their current location. So that is when they came up with an application to find out if the Coke vending machine had enough number of Cokes, and also they implemented this application in the university's website. So this was the first device getting connected to internet, which was the Coke vending machine in 1982. And then in 1990, we had the bread toaster connected to the internet. And in 1993, we had a coffee machine connected to the internet. So you can see that the devices were simple devices getting connected to the internet. We have Coke vending machines, bread toasters, and coffee machines. And only in 1999, we had the term IoT coined by Kevin Ashton. So right now, India is moving towards an entrepreneur world. And you have entrepreneur journey, you have lots of motivational talks in YouTube by different entrepreneurs, success stories, failure stories. So you can see that the start is always simple. So it started from a Coke vending machine, and you can see right now the entire world is connected to internet. Automobiles are connected to internet, refrigerators, washing machines, the entire home is getting connected to internet. So you can see that the simple beginnings have always a great success, right? So this is also a great motivation for students or participants who intend to become entrepreneurs, to have their own companies, to have startups. So all simple beginnings have great success, right? So this is a great example that in 1982, a simple Coke vending machine was connected to the internet, but right now you have the entire world getting connected to the internet. So this is the history of IoT. And when you look at the architecture of IoT, so before I move into the challenges we have in the IoT ecosystem, I just wanted to give you a brief idea about the architecture of IoT following 4 different layers. One is the perception layer, one is the network layer, one is the processing layer, one is the application layer. So you can see you have 4 different layers. So IoT not only includes internet, it also includes a hardware in it, right? So when you look at the perception layer, you have different kinds of devices in it: cameras, robots, sensors, and you have different kinds of electronic components in it. So this is the perception layer, and then you have the network layer, where you have routers, Wi-Fi modules, Bluetooth devices, transmission devices, and so on. Then you have processing layer, where the data has been stored and processed, which is the data centers, cloud, web service devices, and finally you have the application layer. So you can see that data is being collected in the perception layer, and then it is transported through the network layer. It is stored in the processing layer, the cloud, and it is processed, and then it is moved to the application layer, which is your smart homes, smart health, smart manufacturing systems, smart cities, smart grids, and so on. So this is how the IoT architecture is quite interesting, where you have both electronic hardware components as well as the Wi-Fi modules, network systems. So an IoT device cannot work without internet, right? So that is why internet is very much required for IoT networks. Okay, so we have different types of sensors in IoT devices, like your temperature sensors, chemical sensors, gyroscope, optical sensors, gas sensors, accelerometers, proximity sensors. So all these sensors are available ready-made in the market. So students who are interested in doing IoT projects, you can purchase these sensors in the electronic components stores outside, and also in Amazon. So you can purchase them, and using these sensors, you can come up with different IoT projects. So temperature sensors are used usually in agriculture projects to monitor the temperature of the soil. Motion sensors can be used in security and intrusion detection systems. So motion sensors are installed in education institutions, hospitals, and so when students move out of the classroom, the lights are switched off automatically. So when there is a movement, the light is switched on. Okay, so you have level sensors, proximity sensors. So all this are the different kinds of sensors available in the IoT market. So this is how the sensors look like. And you have heartbeat sensors, rain sensors, IR sensors, touch sensors, humidity sensors. So you can purchase these sensors, and based on your projects, you can use them accordingly. So you have gas sensors, alcohol detection sensors, smoke sensors, proximity sensors, IR receivers, and you have different kinds of sensors in the market. So this is all about the different kinds of sensors we have. And when we talk about applications, the applications of IoT is in plenty. You have consumer and home applications, smart infrastructures, security, surveillance. Lots of IoT applications are used for security and surveillance. Healthcare is a major area where IoT is being used. Retail industry, lots of stores have been converted with the help of IoT applications. Lots of retail markets are being transformed using IoT applications, and industries also have the industrial IoT applications. Why do we use IoT applications? For faster processing, so both the customer as well as the owner is happy with the progress, and you have transport systems also with IoT applications. So you can see the applications of IoT is in large, and also you have smart cities, smart homes, healthcare, transportation, smart manufacturing, cars, automobiles, agriculture, home appliances, wearable, human body. So it is an external sensor, so we don't have to implant it into the human body, and it detects the low heart rate of a patient and alerts the doctors. So glucose monitoring is also possible. So when the diabetic level is high, alert is sent to both the patients in their smartphone as well as the doctors. So continuous monitoring is possible, and people can move around, patients can move around. They don't have to be stable at one location. So all this is possible. So the main advantage of IoT is continuous monitoring in different applications in healthcare, agriculture, and so on. So connected contact lenses is available right now. So Google has patented contact lenses. Robotic surgeries are quite evident right now. You can see lots of robotic surgeries happening in YouTube. So small robots are deployed into human body because the level of precision is very much accurate. It is less invasive and faster healing. Patients can go back to their respective places. Faster healing is possible, so they don't have to be admitted in the hospital for a very long time. So all these are the different applications of IoT, which is actually quite fascinating that the healthcare industry has lots of advancements these days. So let's look into a small video where IoT not only helps in the surgeries and the medical side, but it also helps in the entire hospital administration, starting from the admission of a patient till his discharge. So let's look into a small video. Okay, so this is a clear indication to us to know that IoT is not only helping the doctors and medical professionals, it is also helping the entire hospital administration, so which is actually quite good. And when you look into the challenges, because for each technology, it has its advantages and it also has its challenges. So technology is always has plus and its minus. So when you look at the challenges of IoT, main challenge we have is security. So that is why the term cyber attacks are quite common these days, because previously when we had just Ethernet connections, we didn't have the term cyber attacks, cyber security. But right now, after lots of IoT applications, lots of Wi-Fi modules are coming into market, we have lots of new terms like cyber attacks, different kinds of cyber attacks happening. So security is one of the main challenge we have in the IoT ecosystem. So when we look at the motives behind cyber attacks, you can see that 41% is for ransomware attacks. So previously, people were kidnapping others for money, but right now people are like taking a hold of one's system information, hacking the system, getting the information, and demanding money. So this is for ransomware attacks, and 41% is ransomware attacks, 27% is insider threats, people working the same organization giving information about the future plans, proposals to their friends outside the company. 26% is for political reasons between political parties, because everything is becoming digitalized right now. And 26% is for competition between companies, business organizations, and 24% is cyber war, where right now we can see that lots of cyber warfares are happening between different countries. So all these are the challenges we have with advancements of digital technologies and IoT. And when we talk about the different kinds of attacks, we have phishing attacks, DDoS attacks, malware attacks, password attacks, insider attacks. So since we are from the computer science engineering background, I'm sure that you must have come across all these kinds of attacks, right? So these are the different kinds of attacks available right now in the IoT ecosystem. And along with this, you also have new types of attacks coming up, like SQL injection attacks, zero-day exploit, DNS tunneling, XSS attacks, cryptojacking, social engineering attacks. So you can check for more information online on these attacks, because they have lots of research papers and so on. So this is actually one good area where you can focus in terms of research on how can you prevent these kinds of attacks happening in the IoT ecosystem. So SQL injection, where just a code is injected to destroy the entire database, right? So that is why right now lots of awareness is being given on how do we protect ourselves from the cyber attacks happening in the cyberspace. And we have rootkits, botnets. So these are the different kinds of attacks happening. So you can see that lots of Facebook accounts get hacked on a daily basis. Lots of Instagram accounts get hacked. So it is always advised to have a two-factor authentication in social media accounts, including LinkedIn. So all these are the different kinds of attacks happening. And when we talk about security, we have security on an individual basis, on properties, government systems, where individuals, lots of cyber stalking, online harassment is happening right now, identity theft, properties, stealing of bank account details, and so on. When you talk about government agencies, hacking of national security programs, spreading of misinformation or wrong propagandas on political parties. So all this is quite common these days. And how is cybersecurity and IoT related? So you can see that internet is playing a major role right now in the entire world. And you can see we have wireless signals, industrial Internet of Things, Industry 4.0, Industry 5.0 is coming up soon. We have artificial intelligence, social engineering, devices, lots of gadgets getting connected to the internet. You have Internet of Things, lots of even computer chips are getting connected to the internet. So among this, you also have cyber crime, cyber attacks, hackers involved in this society. You have software engineering attacks and so on. So the hackers exist within us. So we have to be very careful, and that is why cybersecurity and IoT are very closely related, because lots of issues happen due to the Internet of Things. So how can we prevent attacks happening in IoT devices? So security in IoT is actually very much important, because in CNBC there was an article in 2022 that the hackers can exploit cars, medical devices, which are essential to daily life, and have security vulnerabilities. Because when a hacker takes control of your car's automation, then your life is at threat, because he is the one who can control your entire car, right? So all this is quite possible, and lots of security attacks right now happen in pacemakers. We have seen lots of movies, lots of threats for political leaders, where the hackers get control of their pacemakers and their life is at threat. So all this is possible right now, and you can see the most hacked devices in terms of IoT devices are the security camera systems, which is contributing to 47% of threat, and which is actually a very serious point to think, because we always think that security cameras, CCTV cameras are helping us, but on the other hand, it is the most hacked devices. So in terms of security, let's see how is the security issue a concern in the IoT world.
This is called a smartphone, but it's actually a multi-purpose pocket computer that stays connected at all times and goes with me wherever I go. And with this simple device, I generate an astounding amount of personal information, like pictures and videos, my web browsing habits, GPS locations, financial information, and even health information. Now, here's a question. What happens to all this sensitive data? We all know our data is stored locally on our devices, but did you know they are also recorded onto third-party cloud storage systems where large businesses can learn more about their users? Not only is this unfair, privacy is also jeopardized as cloud systems have been prone to security attacks, and sensitive data leak into the wrong hands every day. And the plot is about to get much thicker. Every day, ordinary household items and appliances like thermostats, refrigerators, alarm clocks, activity trackers, and even light bulbs are being embedded with sensor technology. We are about to enter the age of the Internet of Things, and it is predicted in a few years there will be billions of these devices. In preparation, we at BitCircle have designed the BitBox, a revolutionary product created to put power back into your hands. The BitBox is designed to connect with all your IoT devices and securely collect, backup, and transfer your data within your own network. Every piece of data in the BitBox is encrypted individually and are only accessible to the primary users. Unauthorized parties would have to try to decrypt each piece of data individually, if possible at all. And for data sharing, the BitBox allows you to create your own circles. This can be personal, professional, or even medical circles. Let your physician track your health and activity monitoring devices. Let your friends track the type of music you are purchasing. Set privacy restrictions on your service providers for a change. The possibilities are endless, and you will always be in control. Remember, no institution can protect the privacy of your personal information better than you. The BitBox puts power back into your hands.
Okay, so when you talk about the levels of security, there are 3 levels of security in IoT devices. One is the hardware security, where the devices are designed and manufactured with security, because for a IoT system to be secured, the hardware also should be secured, the network should also be secured, right? So if only your network is secured and your hardware is not secured, it doesn't serve the purpose. So your hardware security is very much important. Secure proof purchases should be done. There should not be any done in your purchases. So tamper-proof hardware is very much important. And then your network security comes where you're securing your communication channels with via firewalls between your devices and network. So that is why right now, in many education institutions, hospitals, and employee organizations, we have firewall access for the students and faculty members to enter the university's internet system, which is more secured. So we need to implement firewalls for network security and also application security for softwares and applications running in IoT devices like your smartphones, iPads, and so on. So everything has to be secured. Only when you have all these three levels secured, then your entire IoT system is secured. So these are the level of security we have in IoT devices. So the 6 principles of IoT, cyber security across the stack is when we talk about the first one, which is secure your device, the hardware security, which is very much important. Second one is this communication, securing the communication channels. Third one is your cloud, securing your cloud in terms of identification, authentication, encryption. So you can see that you have different principles in it: device intelligence, edge processing, device initiated connections, messaging control, identification, authentication, encryption, and then you have the remote control and update of devices. So these are the 6 principles. And when you talk about cyber attacks in the healthcare industry, you see that in the past 5 years, healthcare industry is experiencing the largest number of cyber attacks. Why? Because it is a threat to both the hospitals as well as the patients, because the hackers get to know the medical condition of the patients and they are threatening them for ransomware attacks, right? So lots of hospitals in India and abroad have gone through ransomware attacks. So healthcare is a growing cyber sickness. And the healthcare information is 10 times more valuable on the black market than the credit card information. So you can see how vulnerable it is. And lots of healthcare cyber attacks are happening. So we need to be very careful, because right now all the healthcare information is becoming digitalized in the computer systems. So proper firewalls and proper security updates should be installed in the computers to prevent all these kinds of issues. So the healthcare cybersecurity statistics for 2021 is looks like you can see that more than 90% of healthcare organizations have experienced a data breach, and 88% of healthcare workers they open the phishing emails. So all this is quite scary for us. And also when you talk about cyber attacks in aviation industry, you can see that airplane is being connected to different kinds of stations through Wi-Fi. Data communication, satellites, GPS, data communication, and air traffic control, airline operations is being monitored. So you can see that lots of communication channels is going between the aeroplane and the different stations to which it is connected, and everything is through Wi-Fi. So there is no wired connectivity. So when there is too much of wireless connectivity, there is a chance for security breach being happen. And you can see that the cyber attacks in the aviation industry in 2022, we see that different countries are being attacked by ransomware attacks, internal security threats, attacks on payment systems where you giving your credit card informations. So all these are the threats we have right now. So India is playing a very major role to bring down this cyber security threats by the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. We have the India Cyber Crime Coordination Center, CERTIN, the Digital India, where lots of awareness is being given out, and we have the Cyber Surakshit program, the Cyber Swachh Kendra. So all this is being taken care to ensure that India is safe in the cyberspace. Okay, now let's talk about the research in security in IoT. So we have participants in this conference from different levels of education. So I just wanted to highlight what are the areas in which we can focus on research, where we have quantum and space, data privacy, criminology and law, and AI and IoT security. So cyber psychology is one area where lots of research is being done on social behavioral and privacy, cyber physical systems, CPS, and also we can focus on hardware security design, Internet of Things, data science and machine learning, and also penetration testing, because right now lots of research is being going on penetration testing, intrusion detection, and network security, cloud security, because how do you secure your cloud network? Because right now for IoT devices, all the IoT devices, the data has been stored in the cloud network. So is your cloud secure? So cloud security is one area. Cryptography is also one area, and digital forensics. So cyber psychology, cyber physical systems, hardware security, penetration testing, intrusion detection, digital forensics are areas where lots of research is being done. So you can take note of these areas, and also you can check online for more papers already existing in this, and how can you differentiate your research from the existing papers. So this is all about the research in IoT security. And talking about the future of IoT, we have a very good future ahead, and the total revenue expected in 2025 is $3 trillion. And as we saw earlier, by 2025, we are expecting to have 25 billion devices connected to the IoT. And there is software called Tinkercad, which is an open source software. So students who are interested to learn more about the IoT devices, IoT networks, IoT projects, this is a simulation software, and it is available online. It is an open source software, so you don't have to download it. In this IoT Tinkercad, you can come up with lots of IoT simulation projects. And lots of tutorials are also available in YouTube for IoT Tinkercad. So you can make use of this. And before I end my presentation, I just wanted to give you a small hint that technology does not help us always. I'm not sure how many of you will agree to this, even though we are in a digital transformed world, and the theme for today's conference is AI things and sustainability and moving forward in a digital ecosystem, right? I'll just end my presentation with this video.
Playing jazz.
Playing jazz.
Smoothie.
Making smoothie.
Calendar.
No meetings today. Remember, tandläkare at 9:30.
Fire off.
Fire off.
Open door.
Door open.
Så ska vi sätta en till.
Ja. Open door.
Wrong voice command.
Open door.
Wrong voice command.
Open door.
Repeat that.
Open door.
I didn't understand that.
Hey, open door.
Play on the floor.
Get over the door. Open the door.
Wrong voice command. Error.
Hey, with a rock. Open door. Open door. Open door. Higher.
Higher volume.
Higher.
Higher.
Okay, so this is just a gentle reminder to us that technology does not help us always, even though we live in a digitally transformed world, and moving forward, everything is going to be digitalized, but we always need to be careful in the cyberspace. So with this, I would like to conclude my presentation, and if you have any doubts on AI, IoT, you can always connect to me through LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to assist you. So I would like to take this opportunity to once again thank the conference organizing committee, the chairman, principal, and all the faculty members for giving me this opportunity. And I hope that this session would have been useful to all the participants. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for a very nice talk. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, photographer, musician, multidimensional. Thanks, sir. Very, very nice, sir.
Yes.
Sir, we have a couple of questions from students, undergraduate students. I'll put these questions. May I put the questions here, sir?
Sure, yes.
For the students. Okay. Sir, undergraduate students, especially BTech in computer science and engineering, they want to, they need to do some of the projects in IoT. Okay. So, how do you advise them to deal with, any hardware kind of stuff to initially begin with, or simulation kind of stuff to begin with, or how they should proceed?
So that is why, as I mentioned, right now we have this open source software called Tinkercad, where in this software you have all the IoT sensors available internal to the software. So instead of buying the sensors, doing the prototype of IoT projects, you can first use this software. And using this software, you can come up with like a gas detection project or temperature sensor. Using temperature sensor, you can come up with an IoT project, and you can use this simulation to first understand the connections and how does it work, what are the components, hardware is required, and then you can move forward with the real prototype. So by that way, you can also learn the electronic requirement for IoT projects, because when we talk about computer science, it is like more of they hardly touch the electronic subjects. So it is good if you can use this IoT Tinkercad, because it is available free of cost. So that you will have an idea about the required electronic hardwares in IoT projects, and then after that you can come up with your own IoT prototypes, so that you can improve your knowledge while you work on it.
Sir, okay, I will definitely take a note of that, sir. IoT Tinkercad. Okay, sir, with respect to research point of view, a question is. The IoT security, when it comes into picture, a thorough description and the broad areas of research which you have mentioned is very helpful, sir. May I request you to please advise me, especially because I am basically having an interest in IoT and blockchain, that kind of aspect which I want to explore. So, when I say this particular mixture of this IoT blockchain security with respect to IoT devices, the IoT simulated data fitted into blockchain for security, or which way will be easier for the students to initially begin with, like IoT simulated data with blockchain, or hardware stuff directly integrating with blockchain? From student point of view, which will be better?
Because in the research topics I mentioned, I did not mention about blockchain, because right now after lots of research, they even say that even blockchain is not 100% secure.
Yes.
So that is also a challenge we have. But to start with, since the students should get proper exposure, you can deal with the blockchain separately. And from the hardware point of view, because IoT network with the blockchain, we have lots of challenges till now. So from the hardware point of view, you can take blockchain as a separate entity and deal with that accordingly.
Sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for your valuable talk, sir.
Thank you, sir.
On behalf of NIST, I would like to thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Well, now I would like to request Dr. Vivek Kumar. Yes. Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir. Sir, am I audible, sir? Your voice is...
Namaskaram.
Yes, sir. You're audible. Yes, sir. Clear, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Okay. Good morning, sir. Sorry for delay. We made you wait around 5 to 6 minutes.
I was interesting to Dr. Tensingh lecture itself.
Sir, First of all, I'd like to request Professor Manisha Patra to give a brief introduction about you, and then we can proceed with your valuable talks.
Sure.
Sir, thank you very much. Ma'am.
Good morning, sir. Okay, so before proceeding with our third keynote talk, I would first like to welcome our honorable respected chairman, Sir Dr. Kumar Mahapatra, Dr. Principal Dr. P. Rajesh Kumar, Vice Principal Dr. Vishnu Karnaik, Professor, School of Computer Science and Engineering, Dr. Manas Ranjan Patra, sir. The HOD, Computer Science and Engineering, Dr. Brajakumar Mishra, Head of Research and Innovation, Dr. Sandeep. So it is my, sir, in order to just control the cloud, we are live streaming it in YouTube. So here there are limited number of audience are there, but our students are going through the webinar through online streaming, through YouTube. Okay, so let me introduce you. It is my pleasure to introduce our distinguished keynote speaker, Dr. Vivek Kumar, who served as a scientist at University of Federal Armed Force in Germany, contributing to the Stellar project, part of Horizon 2020 EU program. He received the doctorate under the Phil Humans European Commission Horizon 2020 ITN project, where he worked as a Marie-Curie researcher with Philips Research NL and the University of Cagliari, Italy. His research interests are DL, ML, NLP, sentimental analysis, mental health, knowledge graphs, AI fairness, and bias. Besides research, he is an active sportsman who holds 6 world and Asian records. He has also rendered his service to oversee diplomatic mission in research, science, and technology to strengthen bilateral relations and won several accolades. Here we are honored to welcome him today as he generously imparts his extensive knowledge and expertise to our audience. His keynote topic for today is knowledge augmenting practice in domain adaptation. Now I request Dr. Vivek to address the audience. So please address the audience.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. May I share the screen?
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
Do you see the presentation?
No, sir. Presentation is not visible. Oh, yes, sir.
Presentation is visible?
Yes, sir. Your screen is visible. The screen that you have shared is visible. But till now, presentation is...
Okay, let me try. Just a second. Not able to share a window of my screen, but only the...
Sir, at that time, I was able to see your window, the screen that you were sharing, but the PPT was not visible.
You can see only the window, right?
Now I'm unable to see your windows. Okay. Now I can see the presentations.
Yes. No, but you might be seeing my screen.
Screen, not the presentation.
Yeah.
You can just...
Can you see the presentation now?
Yes, sir. Now I can see the presentation.
Okay, great. Okay, sorry for the delay.
No issue.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. So today the talk is about knowledge augmenting practices in domain adaptation. Let's start with a question. If I ask you one thing, that what is the stark difference that distinguishes a human from the artificial intelligence, what would you say? So starting from this very basic question, in order to understand the capabilities of domain and knowledge augmentation and how it come into the interplay, it is important to understand this fundamental question. So if I have to give the answer, my answer would be, humans have the innate ability to infer previous communication context, knowledge, and information from the previous instances which we learned over the period of time at the moment when it is required. However, for machine, it is not the usual case. Machines are not capable or inbuilt by default to be able to use the relevant knowledge. For instance, if I'm talking about 10 years of the past and I had a communication with a particular person about my health or my travel, machine cannot do automatically. Machine needs some indications, some timelines, some timestamps, and some information in regards to that in order to be able to retrieve that information into the context which we are dealing today. So this is the stark difference, and the whole idea and the whole gist of the machines is to get closer or to be able to mimic the human brain. So, in this context, this research is towards mimicking the brain by means of domain adaptation. When I say domain, here domain can be vaguely understood as a particular sector, such as agriculture domain, healthcare domain, finance domain. So, by domain, when I say domain, I mean these kind of segregations within our industry or academia. And when I talk about knowledge augmentation, I particularly talk about the kind of knowledge that is related to a particular domain. For instance, let's say if I say certain kind of tumors can lead to cancer, that particular information belongs to a particular domain that can be clinical or a healthcare setting, correct? So when I mean knowledge augmentation, that means that I'm talking about this kind of knowledge in a healthcare domain. So moving further, so far the existing methodologies, the kind of approaches and the techniques that we use is in terms of knowledge can be referred to be knowledge graphs, which we will discuss a bit later. So the first question that arises again is, how do we address these knowledge gaps? How do we quantify that? What if when we inject the knowledge, it leads to some false semantic changes and it introduces some knowledge noise? By knowledge noise means that if I ask who is the CEO of OpenAI, and if that information is wrong, then the kind of knowledge you are injecting is wrong, and that lead to some sort of knowledge noise or unnecessary information, or maybe the wrong information that might deviate you from the context. Then the third question that comes in the picture is suitability. We just cannot randomly introduce any sort of knowledge which belongs to a particular domain just because it belongs to the particular domain. For instance, if I'm talking about cancer or some asthma or gout, the kind of information that is relevant to me is either of the cancer, either of the gout, not about the entire health industry at all or anything which is related to health domain. For instance, if I'm talking about cough, I need explicit information or symptoms that can signify the cough. I cannot use at that same point something about, let's say, orthopedic or ophthalmology or a problem in the eye. Apparently, that knowledge belongs to that domain, but that is not relevant. So this is how we define suitability or relevance of the knowledge. And then comes the final thing, that how do you optimize the practices that can lead to better knowledge injection? So on the right side, you see a picture, right? The knowledge augmentation in the simplest form uses triples or RDF triples, or we also call ontologies. So they are basically a subject, object, and a relation. So if I say Rome is the capital of Italy, then Italy is the subject, Rome is the object, and the capital is the relation. So it's basically triangulated to three words, of which you are referring to a subject by means of a relation to a particular object. And this kind of information we inject in order to improvise, or let's say enrich, the semantics of our context. So to do so, as I mentioned, we use knowledge graph. So knowledge graph in its simplest form is triples, as I demonstrated. And the existing works and trends that use knowledge graph are knowledge graph embeddings. The direct injection of knowledge graphs, or let's say triples, in the format of enriching the knowledge is a very scarce work. And this work is only a few that has directly used triples into the text. Like into the text means that we are going to enrich the text, and then we are going to use the machine learning practices. Could be deep learning, could be classical machine learning for a standard support vector machine, or LSTM or BiLSTM or transformer based model like BERT, or some large language model. This is what I mean when I say CML or deep learning models. So before we use them, we enrich our text by means of knowledge. This is how this topic justifies knowledge augmentation in a particular domain, then further used for machine learning purposes. I hope everything is so clear so far. If there are any questions, you can let me know. Feel free to interrupt me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Sure. Thank you. So if I narrow down it to the problem statement, so my problem statement could be like, we want to devise certain practices that are optimal in nature, that use external knowledge, we can call it as a domain knowledge, when injected in our input text, enriches our text, provides some domain information that further enriches the semantic of our text, and then we use it to leverage this kind of enriched text for domain adaptation. It can also be cross-domain adaptation or just the domain adaptation. And why we need this kind of approach, so much such sort of complex process or devising our own methods? The reason being is that usually there are some intricate domains. There are sensitive domains like mental health, psychology, military psychology, human psychology, or a particular patient-related information. They are very private in nature. They come with a lot of regulation. And even though humanity produces terabytes of information and text and data every minute, it doesn't mean that we have those resources, for instance, like enough training data for our deep neural network models or large language model based models, who can take into account those information as a legit information to learn something out of it. So yes, we produce millions of data points, but not those data points are useful. They are not publicly available when needed. And that is why we suffer from two constraints, I would say. One is a small training data size, which is for a deep neural network based network, and also the domain adaptation part. That, let's say, if I have if I have a data set of a healthcare or a patient data from a hospital, and I particularly want to narrow down it to identify some of the symptoms for asthma or cancer, the entire data is not useful for that. So when you narrow down to that particular use case, you find that the data set, publicly regulated data set, or the data set which is GDPR compliant, like available in public access, is very less in amount. And they are not enough to train the language model to learn the intricacies of the domain, the fine peculiarity of the semantics. So this is why these practices are needed. This means that with the lesser training data, by enforcing some valuable information, we can make our model more and more intelligent and suitable for a particular domain. So here I present an architecture which is developed by me in order to inject the knowledge. So I will present this architecture in two separate forms, like in two sections. We call it KLM, which stands for Knowledge Augmenting Knowledge Language Model. And starting from left to right, if you see, there are 4 blocks. So what we do basically is we first take an input and segregate our triples. We categorize the triple based on their length of the subject. So length of the subject means, if I say Rome is the capital of Italy, Rome is the subject, and it's just a single token. So we call it uni sub triple. But if I say Narendra Modi is Prime Minister of India, then Narendra Modi is 2 token. So that represents the length of the subject of the triple as 2 tokens. So then it becomes bi sub triple and so on. So we segregate it in order to practice the optimal methods, what could lead to mitigate the noise and have optimal knowledge injection. Then there are 2 methods. One is the forward injection and one is the reverse. Forward injection means we give priority to the maximum length of the triple, and reverse injection means we give priority to the smallest length of the subject in a triple, which will be very clear because this is entirely new concept. So it would take a bit of effort also to understand. So I'm breaking it to in smaller portions, and slide by slide, it will get more obvious and more clear. Then we use to find out. So let's say for a sentence, when we added some knowledge, we want to find out how optimal that sentence is for a given pair of or a given numbers of triples. So if you see in the left, we have couple of triples, and let's say there is one sentence and we have injected that knowledge into that sentence. So now we also want to know that out of 1,000 possible triples, which one is the best. So then there is in GPT-2, there is a possibility of finding it through a mathematical process that is called permeability or probability score. So for a given range of sentences, when applied with GPT, it returns a value that is called probability score. And the lower the probability score is, the better suited the sentence structure is. So GPT-2 takes into the account the added triple of the input sentences. So for instance, if we have 1,000 triples and there is one input sentence, after adding all those triples sequentially, like one triple at once, and if we find out the score of 1,000 generated sentences, we can choose on the basis of the permeability score that we have received. So this is the first part of the model, which is triple selection module, where we process the triple, we select the triple, and we decide in which format we want to inject it, and that passes through GPT and returns a permeability score for us to let us decide what kind of sentences we want to fetch to the model. This is the whole picture of the architecture, which will become more obvious and more clearer after this explanation. So as you see in the second half of the image, there is a module called Kalin classification module. So to put in simple words, Kalin classification module is basically a large language model, which is designed to take into, like the regular way how we apply machine learning algorithms. It takes an input, provide an embedding, passes through the transformer layers, and then provide the prediction. But what is so different into it? So as you can see from the yellow box from the first Kalin triple selection module, the permeability score is passed to a layer called knowledge layer for injecting triples. There we decide whether we want that permeability score or we just want to do by ourselves. So that means that whether we want to be deterministic about a particular triple, how is it injected, or we just want to generalize it. Let me clarify also why we need deterministic and non-deterministic approach is based on the requirement of domain adaptation. When we talk about machine learning in real-time scenarios, for the real-world application, we also want our models to be scalable and generalizable. So when we are dealing with a particular domain, it makes sense to use a deterministic approach because then the inflow of the knowledge is domain-based. But when we want to expand or when we want to do cross-domain adaptation or when we want to apply that knowledge in any format, like we are talking about cancer, but we want to deploy our model also for certain different of issues or the use cases, or going beyond the cancer and talking about asthma, gout, and some other kind of problems, then that is the scalability or the generalizability of the model, the generalization capability. So that's why we choose both of them. So let's start here with the standard process. You see a block that is called input sentence, right? So our sentence, the basic sentence is graph embedding representation dash 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 set of vectors. So now if you look at the input triple block, you have a triple starting from the name graph, and then the another one is embedding. So when we use this input sentence and pass through our knowledge layer, based on the score, we are having now an output sentence, which is a bit longer than the input sentence. And here you see the graph and embedding are highlighted in different color, and there are some trees kind of a structure like decision trees. There are some structures associated with them. Those structures are basically nothing but the triples associated with them. And after, when the knowledge injected, the sentence is flattened. So the whole sentence would be: graph uses human scientific creativity, embedding represents vector in high dimension, and are compared representations are the transformation of property of graph to a set of vectors. So you see that you gave me an input sentence, but the output that is returned by the model has a particular knowledge, or let's say information, associated with the graph and the embedding, which somehow enriches our text. So for instance, if I ask about Tom Cruise, and so it will be the kind of information you would like to want, that the most successful movie of Tom Cruise was Maverick, Top Gun, or Top Gun 2, or Top Gun Maverick, right? So this is extra information that makes you more, let's say, adapted to a particular domain, correct? So this architecture is different from the general architecture of the machine learning modules in a way that you can see that after the sentence is flattened, it is not only passed to the embedding layer, which is the usual practice, but it is passed to also to a seeing layer. Seeing layer is basically a C matrix. It's called a visible matrix concept we have designed by our own. So that matrix actually decides that which part of the text, input text, will communicate with each other. So for instance, if you see at the sentence graph and embedding, the two highlighted words, there is some knowledge augmented to it, right? Some knowledge or some triples is associated with that. So by the seeing layer, we decide that graph and embedding will not communicate with each other, because if they are put together into the sentence, they basically are going to mess up. So this is a precautionary, or let's say preventing mechanism to not let introduce knowledge noise or false semantic changes. So we do involve the knowledge, we do inject the knowledge, but we keep a control out of it. And then the usual practice is the embedding layer, and the seeing layer passes that information, that which node is supposed to communicate with which one. So we control the information that is passed to the mask transformer encoder, which is essentially BERT, which is 2018 breakthrough and is still pretty much the state of the art. And then we have our labels predicted. I hope so far so clear.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So moving further, so summing up, so what are the strategies which were involved? So as I mentioned, there were two kind of approaches based on the generalization or scalability of the model, that is deterministic and non-deterministic. So when you want the knowledge to be very focused on the domain, then you use deterministic, that is context aware. So if I talk about a movie, if I talk about a particular health condition, then I use only the knowledge that is the best suited for that particular scenario or the use case. But in case if I'm talking about in general anything, it would make sense to use non-deterministic or context, also called context unaware knowledge. So if I'm talking about general about reading or about a certain art, but I'm not focused on a particular athlete, or I'm not focused on a particular genre of movie, then the knowledge would be context unaware, and we can talk in general about the movies or anything. So that's how non-deterministic thing can be distinguished from the deterministic. As I mentioned, the forward and the reverse injection. So by example, I showed that there are a uni, bi, and tri subtriple. Another thing, why we limited our experiment to the tri subtriple, because it's not in the usual practice that the length of the object can be more than 3. And if it does happen, it is usually the name or a particular description which doesn't fit the experiments for obvious reason. And adding too long, like text into a very small input sentences also lead to a lot of deviation, which is called false semantic changes. So, for instance, if I'm talking about, let's say, a movie called Top Gun Maverick, which is about like Air Force, but the information I'm getting more about is the Tom Cruise. So then the focus from the movie is moved into a different direction, which we call is a false semantic changes, is a personal career of Tom Cruise, correct? So this is why we prefer to have the controlled injection of knowledge. So we decide that the context is preserved and we don't have false semantic changes. So to demonstrate all these approaches and device methods, we have used two knowledge graph. This knowledge graph is developed by one of our core community member, and this knowledge graph has 14 million triples. And the another one is 12,000, which is a subset of the first one. And by heuristic approaches, we have narrowed down it to 12,000 from 14 million. So the reason is that when in the first slide I did mention that there is a context, or there is a like goal, we should say, is the suitability of the knowledge graph. So when we want to quantify that how much knowledge is sufficient, then we also need to know that which kind of knowledge is suitable, or let's say relevant. So in order to observe the suitability and the relevance of a knowledge graph, we have experimented with delicately handing out 12,000 triple and experimenting with that, and let's see how it goes. At the first observation, it should be like when we are using a large database like 14 million triple, of course the result should be better. But much to the surprise, the result with 12,000 triples are in very closer proximity, or let's say very competitive with the 14 million triples. The reason being, the context which we discussed before, the suitability of the triples played a larger part into the entire experiment. So to sum up, it's not the amount of data which you use to inject the knowledge. It is the relevance of the knowledge that makes sense to an experiment. So moving further. So this is a working diagram flow of the our proposed architecture, and which would be much understandable now. So I will just walk through this in order to make the whole thing make sense and become easier to interpret and understand and comprehend. So let's say we are given input triple, and you can see from the bottom to the top, we will move in that direction. And also please ping me the time when I'm close to like 30 minutes. Could you tell me, sir, how much time?
Yes, sir. Please, you can take your own convenient time. I mean, no problem. Okay. We are having sufficient time. No problem, sure. Sir.
Thank you.
You're talking. Even it's an awesome talk, and no problem at all.
Sure. So to put everything in a picture together, let's say we generated some triples, which are the simplest form of the knowledge graph. As you can see, the lowest block is input triple, having something highlighted in yellow color. So that is graph embedding, which are single tokens, like one word. And then there is a graph embedding, correct, which is 2 word, which we can call as a bi subtriple. And then the last one is having 3 subjects, like 3 words in the subject. So we call it tri subtriple. Tri sub is for subject. So it's like tri word subject triple. So this is the order of the triples. So what we do, we pass this entire set of triples to triples categorization, and they identify that some of the triples are unisubtriple, some are bisubtriple, and some are trisubtriple, correct? And then we pass it to the block where we decide, which was the selection module of KLM, where we decide how should we inject this knowledge. So as I mentioned before, there are 2 methods now. One is the forward injection and one is the reverse injection. As you can see by clear example, it is self-indicative and self-explanatory. When we pass these triples to the reverse, you see that the priority is given to the triple which is having the largest length of the subject. And Contrary to that, in the forward injection, you see that the priority is given to the always the smallest one. So these are the two mechanisms which we devised is portrayed here. Then we pass whatever the method you choose, regardless, forward or reverse. Then we pass this selected triples and the sentence which is finally formed to the triples ranking module. There you decide whether you want to go with the context aware or context unaware context. So after having those triples selected, now it's up to your choice. Depending upon the use case or your requirements, you pass it through. And then you have the classification module where a standard classification, if a standard classification task is there, you perform it. Moving further. So this is even a more detailed portrayal of forward and reverse injection, which you can see by means. So if I talk about a forward injection, you can see if there was a sentence given as graph embedding representation, you see that the priority is given to the unit triples. So first we inject a knowledge with a graph, that is a triple, and then with the embedding. However, we do have in our shell graph embedding representation related triple, but we did not do that. But on the contrary, if you see at the reverse injection, we pass through graph embedding representation, and the triple which we had with the graph embedding representation, we put it. So we force the model to take the largest triple. The reason being is that the larger part of the text that is mapped to the triple requires a lesser number of triples to augment the knowledge. So for instance, here you see that for each graph and embedding, you have put a triple, which makes the sentence a bit more longer. But here in graph embedding representation, you have just put one triple, and that adds more value, which is evident from our experiments. So we are talking about a standard classical classification problem of a binary classification. The classification problem was to identify from a pool of research work that which one belong to AI and which one doesn't belong to AI. I mean, all the work belong to computer science like IoT and machine vision and other research areas related to computer science. But we were very explicit to the problem that we want the labels to be AI or non-AI. So here we are introducing our model for a use case, which is to identify a binary classification problem of AI versus non-AI. So you can see there are two tables. The first table is the full graph, which was 14 million triples. And the second one was the small, on the contrary, the first one is about the smaller one, and the second one is the 14 million triples. So now let's compare. So what we do is that first we allow the model to have all the injection of all the triples without any order. Then we force only the uni-subtriple triples to be injected, followed by bi-triple and tri-triple, and then there is a reverse full injection. So like you use the largest triple at first and later the smallest one. This is the course of experiment. So there are total of 5 different kind of experiments combined with deterministic and non-deterministic approaches with 2 knowledge graph. So the first one is the smaller knowledge graph, and the second one is the larger knowledge graph. As you can see, the best performance observed from the smaller knowledge graph, we just had 12,000 triple, is 81.98 from the tri-triple sub-injection, correct? And then if you look at the best performance from the larger knowledge graph, it is 81.72 from the triple sub-injection. Now, why did it happen? Why this unpredictable thing happened? The reason being is, when we have chosen hand-picked 12,000 triples, they become more relevant to our data set. But when we use a large knowledge base that includes lot many things, sometimes essentially some knowledge is infused which was not meant for it or can be considered as not the best knowledge that should have been introduced, and that leads to false semantic changes. That is why even with the lesser number of triples, the smaller knowledge graph performed well on these augmenting processes rather than the one which was the bigger one, which is not obvious. So here we see the importance of relevance of the knowledge we add rather than the quant the standard, let's say in context of quantification versus relevance, we see that how the relevance plays an important part. So this is about deterministic setting where we use GPT to find out the permeability score and we are domain focused. Let's go through the non-deterministic approach. So even though we are doing non-deterministic approach, you can see that when we have the knowledge graph which is particularly seasoned for our domain or the data set, the performance is reduced marginally only. That was 81.95 and this reduced to only 81.82. But on the contrary, you see that the performance with the larger knowledge graph reduced much. So again, in context of quantity versus quality, or let's say relevance, we again see how relevance plays an important part. Also, to give a reference how this model has performed, and after devising so many methods of injecting the knowledge and generating, techniques which can lead to optimal knowledge practices, and complex large language model which requires a lot of computational resource, how far we have come in terms of a standard practice. So this full kg injection is representative of the standard state-of-the-art method current, which is BERT, bidirectional decoder, which you know. So the best performance that has been received from the BERT is only 74.49. While in any of the model you will see the minimum performance is at least 76 and the best one is 81.2. So if I say my best performance is 81.82 of accuracy, and the accuracy doesn't mean accuracy, I'm talking about balanced accuracy. That means our data set is heavily imbalanced. So for instance, if there are two labels 0 and 1, 0 is 10,000 and 1 is only 200 or 300. So our data is already having a skewed distribution and it's biased in nature. So that's why we cannot compare accuracy as a legit metric which will be useful or handy in this situation, but a balanced accuracy. Should I present the accuracy, it was above 90, but because we are talking about the real-time scenario, so we only consider which is feasible. So you see that a state-of-the-art model only receives a performance of 75%, let's say, accuracy, while just by little bit of triple injection, we are able to raise the accuracy, or let's say F1 score, to 4 or 5% on such a small data set of only 1,000 entries. So you can see that how a small knowledge augmentation can lead to, outperforming the current state of the art with least of the efforts. All you need is the resources and intelligent methods of using that knowledge into augmenting the knowledge practices. So here is some observations from our experiments in quantifying the knowledge injection. So it says that the proposed methods of custom feed the triples into knowledge language model have shown superior performance, as I have demonstrated, and they have significantly outperformed the baselines of standard classification method like SVM, decision tree, random forest, NIBase, and BERT, and LSTM and BiLSTM. Except tri-sub triple injection, the remaining four techniques observe consistent decline in model accuracy when max entity is increases from 1 to 5. Max entity here is a parameter. I don't want to make it very complex, so I checked it, but I'll mention it very briefly. Max entity is a parameter. If you look at the slide, on the left experiment, it is written max entity. Max entity is the parameter that controls how many projections you will have. Like, it will not be iterative tree. So if I had like 10 triples for the just the word graph, I can control that how many of them. So max entity 1 means that with a graph there is only one triple injection, but max entity 5 means there will be 5 different branches, each branch representing to one of the triple. So in total 5. The point is that we limit our experiment up to 5 and not more than that, because the sentence is very small. Let's say our input sentence is just 20 words, and we use 5 triple for 3 of the words which are having triples into the sentence, and we keep on adding a lot of information. Then the originality of the sentence is lost at once, right? So we have to, so because it was a progressive method, it is an incremental method of learning, that how to, because our goal is to quantify and do the qualitative analysis. So it was important for us at once to provide all the methods that could come into the picture, that could be decisive in knowledge injection part, right? So that is why we devise on the left to right, you see 6 different methods of injecting the knowledge, and on the left you see max entity 1.5, that shows that when we keep on introducing a lot of knowledge or injecting the knowledge, what are repercussions or what is the impact on the model. So we see that with, moreover, the stable pattern is when we increase more and more knowledge, there are chances of more false semantic changes and the performance declines. But still, none of them is less than the state of the art. So like we have released our model in open domain, and the data is also GDPR compliant, which one you can use. So of course, it makes sense to do such kind of experiments so that the fellow researcher community can also use the model and try them for themselves, that what are the best practices that they can do for their domain or their use cases. And the third point which I wanted to say is tri-supple treatment requires significantly less number of triple injection to achieve the best performance. As I have mentioned before, the same thing. If having an input sentence, a larger part is mapped to just one triple, then that means that knowledge is very specific. There are maybe 1 million triples regarding graph and embedding and something. But for instance, to put in the simpler picture, let's look like this. Tom Cruise is an actor from USA. But if there is a triple that says that Tom Cruise is born in this year, then this part, a very larger part of the text, of your input text, and that information is very specific because they talk about the birth date of that person. So it is a very peculiar information that is being added. But usually you can write a number of things about some actor or some person, or for the given instance, the input sentence which you are having at your disposal. So the larger the part of the sentence that is mapped to a particular embedding is more decisive in nature, it's more concluding, it's more efficient. That is why we have seen that all the experiments with tri-subtriple injections have required to give a quantitative picture. When we used 12,000 triples, out of them there were around 8,000 uni-subtriple. So to achieve an accuracy of 81%, it took the 8,000 triples with the uni-subtriple. But on the contrary, with the tri-subtriple, it took only 112. So you can see the difference. And also it's computationally more efficient. Consider the thing that you are running an experiment where you are injecting 8,000 triples and the experiment is going and going on. But you have just 112 triples to be injected. And then you see that your experiment is concluded fast, it requires less resource, and it's time efficient. So if you're interested in this work and if you want more information, there are a couple of research articles of mine which are out in like public domain. One of them is this picture, this paper, which is shown in the picture. So you can read it out, reach out to me if you have any confusion, if you want some guidance over it, or if you in general want to talk about it as a paper. And this is me, and this project has been funded by PhilHuman and Stellar, which are the Horizon 2020 project of cumulative research executive agencies of European Commission. I'm there in LinkedIn, by email or by any means. If you want to connect, let's talk. And thank you so very much, and to all the organizers for having such lovely audience and giving time to deliver this lecture. Thank you so very much.
Thanks, sir, for a very nice talk. I mean, indeed, it's a very complex topic, but you made it very simple to understand for a beginner also. um, very nice and very clear talk, sir. It's very helpful. Sir, I have a couple of questions from the students. Can I put it here, sir?
Sure,
Yes, sir.
please.
Yes, sir. Sir, the first thing is my question is when we speak about the domain adaptation, sir, I mean, if we make it as a domain, I mean, model centric or data centric, or if we make it hybrid, I mean, which one will be better approach? Like um, the hybrid one, if the unigram or the partitions which you have spoken, is it better to make it hybrid, or or is it domain dependent, or I can say, is it depending on the area where we implement this? I mean, how do we perceive that?
Okay, so these all methods are actually devised to tackle the overall scenario, that all the kind of scenarios we come across. So if I have to mention that, so let's say the end goal of our machine learning applications is always to be scalable in nature and generalizable. We don't want something to be functional just for a particular use case. So I would say, let's say, when we are talking about very sensitive domains like giving diet and nutrition, we are talking about giving recommendation to the patient. We are talking about human psychology, motivational interviewing, those kind of domains. Then the knowledge have to be very focused and let's say tailored to personal need. Then it would make sense to use deterministic approach because then it is very tailored to that use case. But in general, if there is we are not dealing with human lives or certain catastrophe possibilities are not there that can lead to certain sort of disaster or something, then it makes more sense to use the based on your data requirement, based on your use case scenario, it is advisable to use the non-deterministic or context unaware, because
Yes.
anyways you are taking the whole scenario into the interplay and then you are injecting the knowledge which is partially or fully relevant to that, but at the end you are getting some addition. So by the experiments I already have shown that in any of the case, whether you use the deterministic or non-deterministic approach, the performance is going at par, like it's going to outperform the like the state of the art. But the point is that state of art doesn't mean that it's always the right thing. So for instance, I'll just put in a very simpler example. Let's say you have a fire alarm that rings 99% of the time correctly that there is no fire, but you know that the chances of fire is very less. It happens once in a blue moon, and there were one instance in 1 year when the fire alarm did not go off and there were actual fire. So your accuracy rate is 99%, correct? There was only one instance at which your model was not able to predict the fire. That was only one instance, and your accuracy was 99%, but it failed at the right moment. So 99% your model worked right when there was no fire. But when there was fire, it also did not ring the alarm and it failed. So your failure ratio is just 1%. But then you are dealing with that human life and your model is not applicable in the real world scenario. So this is what I meant to say.
Sir. And sir, another question is a student-centric question. Student, I mean, the question is from a student of third year BTech, and so here, when a student wants to enter into this kind of domain as a research, and now what are the prerequisites which he must be good at to enter into an area of research of such kind?
Okay, so this is not a separate area, but I would say this is a different kind of approach which is based on domain. And this is my own idea of directly using the knowledge as a triples regarding knowledge augmentation instead of the general practices which I have shown in the first of the slides as a knowledge graph embedding. Because I find out at some point knowledge graph embedding is not efficient in capturing the context. It is not able to capturing the context of when it is translated from text to knowledge embedding. It is not able to capture. So that's why I prefer to use knowledge. So I wouldn't see it as an area of research, but I would see as a different method in the knowledge augmentation practice. And for this, the basic prerequisite is to be a person to be handy with machine learning libraries, Python, and some understanding what exactly domain means and how distinguish domains with general use cases. And that would suffice, I would say. And reading a couple out of paper, the one I have shared, will give an idea that there could be different methods of knowledge augmenting, and and that would suffice.
Yes, sir. For any of guidance for any of the work, or any students want to have a pursue an interest, or any of our faculties, may I have your permission to reach out to your email address?
Of course, I have that, and I also have my LinkedIn ID. So anybody who is interested to reach out to me for further any sort of collaboration, further guidance, or having just a talk or something, anything which they want to share, I'm available.
Sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for your guidance.
So I'll take a leave now. Namaskaram.
Sir, thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir.